All right, Mike, so let's have a little conversation here about transitioning.
Okay.
And that's a big topic we can talk about. And shallowing the downswing.
Correct.
From the top. And so I think we're just going to flip-flop roles here again, and I would like to listen. And
okay, well, first of all, I mean, there's a lot out there now where they're talking about shallow the club, whether you're shallowing your arms or the club, because they're looking at TrackMan. And they have numbers of angle of approach that they want the club on to maximize what you can do with the ball. So I don't think any of us would necessarily disagree with what those numbers should be. How you get there could be something else. And when we talk about shallowing the club or shallowing your arms, what actually makes them shallow and what are we trying to do? Transition has a lot to do with what your arms do or don't do. And so the reason I've got a baseball bat here and a tennis racket, when I ask most golf professionals or most people, if I said, okay, so I'm set up here to hit a golf ball, and I'm going to give you 4 options as to when I start my change of directions. So option number 1 would be, I'll turn over here. Option number 1 would be start right here. Option number 2 would be to start here. Number 3 would be there, and number 4 would be up here.
That's start your downswing?
So which one of those numbers do you start your downswing on? Most people would call 3 or 4.
Yep.
It's 1.
Yeah.
Now, here's why it's 1, from an athletic perspective, and that's why I've got the baseball bat and the tennis racket. If I am going to hit a forehand in tennis, okay, the minute the racket starts to go back, my body starts to go forward.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's how, and the racket works from up to under. I mean, this is, now it doesn't necessarily do this, but it's because the racket in tennis, the face is this way on a forehand, and then it's that way. It's not this way.
Yep.
But the transition starts, the minute the racket starts to go back, you start to go forward. So it's this, okay? If I take a baseball bat, and you're standing here, yeah, you load your right side, but the minute the bat starts to go this way, your body starts to go that way. Those two offsetting or opposing forces is what keeps you centered.
Yeah.
So the transition doesn't, you don't do this with a baseball bat, you don't go back here, put the bat here, and then try to go forward.
Right.
Okay, so we go even more elementary.
Yep.
I'm going to throw a ball.
Yep.
Okay, so if I'm going to throw a ball, the minute my arm starts to go this way, my body goes that way. I mean, I was a pitcher, so if I stood here, yeah, I'm loaded. Yes, I'm loaded.
Yep.
But the minute my arm starts to go this way, my body starts to go the other way.
Absolutely.
Now, if I tried to do this, if I went here, and I went here, and then I went here, and you said, now throw, see, I'm going to be over the top.
Sure.
Okay, so when I take a golf club, so here's a tennis racket, and there's the transition with a tennis racket.
Yep.
As this goes back, I go forward.
Yep.
As this goes back, I go forward. So all of a sudden I put the tennis racket down. As this goes back, I go forward.
Yep.
It's the same damn thing. Now if you transition correctly, like this, when you transition, and this goes a little lateral, when it goes lateral, it tilts your spine, which tilts your shoulders, which starts your arms down.
Yep.
So the shallowing of your arms or the club happens because of the transition in your body. You transition late, you're going to be steep. And if you try to fix that by doing this, now you put a Band-Aid on a Band-Aid.
Got it.
Okay, so get up here.
Yep, yep.
Do this first.
Yep.
Did you play tennis?
I dabble.
Just your right hand. So forget golf.
Yep.
Just hit a forehand. So see, as the racket goes back, what does your body do?
Goes forward.
Okay, you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So but you're still putting force into your right foot. So you see how you're doing that?
Yeah.
You don't even have to think.
No. I'm certainly not thinking.
No,
Yeah.
shallow, but
Right,
if we look at it on the video,
It happens.
your racket is shallowing.
From my sequence, my body motion.
Exactly. So
Got
the
it.
sequence of your body motion, I'll make a practice swing. It's a tennis racket. There.
Yeah.
So you start changing directions right now. There you go.
Yeah. That's the sensation I get from transferring that to this, is my movement is happening earlier.
Now, and see, you just made that was very perceptive.
Yeah.
You said earlier, you didn't say quicker.
Yeah.
Because when I do this with people, they say, oh, you mean you want me to swing faster? No, no, no. My transition, my swing's really smooth.
Yeah.
My transition is really slow,
Yeah.
but just happens sooner.
Sooner. Got it.
It's not about being quick.
Yep.
See, I can have a really early transition and have it be really soft and smooth. I'm not saying that you have to be quick.
Right.
It just has to start and happen sooner.
And as I'm doing that, happening sooner, as I'm working back, I mean, I like that as kind of an initial like guideline for someone who's never seen that, of kind of getting here, and as would we say, hands near the right leg-ish.
Yep.
As I'm doing this, I'm feeling like I'm throwing the ball, or like I'm throwing a football, or the tennis racket.
They're all the same.
But as I'm doing that motion, my arms are still going to travel back. My body's still turning back as I'm just like the other sports. Yeah.
And when I'm hitting a forehand in tennis, I mean, just because my body's going, but this is still going this way.
Yeah.
I throw a baseball, just because my body's going forward doesn't mean my arm doesn't keep going back.
Yeah, got it.
So when those two all of a sudden collide, then that creates a lot of the leverage that you get.
What would you say, Mike, and maybe it's 100%, of people who get, like to me, and I'll define something from my perspective. From my perspective, someone who gets, because there's a difference between a hand path that comes out too far.
Right.
And a shaft that gets, from my perspective, steep. We'll call it. Someone calls it a steep shaft position. So what percentage of people would you say that get the overhand path, does it stem from those earlier movements? Is it 90?
It's for sure 90%.
Yeah, I got it. So the fix is you fix that.
Yeah, you fix that. And then the other part of it comes a lot out their grip.
Yeah.
Because if their grip's weak, then what's going to happen is then they try to square the face with their shoulder. And if your right arm has to twist to square the face, it's very difficult. It's a multiple global movement pattern to go here and start down and leave your shoulders there and rotate your forearm and not move your shoulder.
Yeah.
Because what your body wants to do, if you give it the task for my arm to rotate, your shoulder's going to go with it.
Yep.
So unless somebody's going to spend a whole lot of time to get them to rotate their arms and not have their shoulders go, it isn't going to happen.
So when I'm from the top, and I want to say kind of, here's what I see a good ball striker do if I look at them. If we go from the top here, right, and it's transitioning, because this to me feels pretty clear cut.
Okay.
You know, like that's straightforward to me, like another sport. If I go up to the top and I get into let's call it like a neutral position.
Yeah.
My hands are, butt of the club's kind of middle of my foot-ish, nothing goofy. When I watch a good player from here, and I were to now here's the getting micro with what we see on camera far, which is funny earlier.
I got it.
And I work from here, I would see the butt of the club going more down than out, for sure. Maybe like on a, not straight down, not this, not even 45, more down than out, but some combination of both. And what I see if I draw that line is, let's say that line's like this, here. I see the shaft on there being just slightly below that. Now, I don't see the hands from the top go out this way.
Yeah.
I don't see the hands from the top go here, although some people. But from a neutral position, I see the hands go just slightly down and out, and the shaft being on or just under that spot.
You're right.
And that's what we see people do.
You're right.
I think some of the videos, like we see where someone said, hey, Mike, what's Mike talking about the shaft getting here, right? And so, from my perspective, and I want to get a serious, what you think with that, if I make a downswing where I do what I do, and I get in this position, which is too far, I would say I need to feel a sensation of here to make it look neutral.
Okay, what you just said that's forces.
Yeah.
So here's what you have to feel. Take a hold of it. So when you get to the top of your swing, the momentum of the club is going like this.
Yep.
When you change directions, the momentum of the club wants to go this way.
Yep.
So what you have to do right in here, you have to do something to offset the momentum of the club, which you're going to feel like you go this way.
Yep.
You're going to feel this to get it there.
Yep.
If you feel there, it's going to be here. So what you have to do to offset the momentum of the club, what you have to feel doesn't equate for most people, because they go, wait a minute, that feels like I'm standing the club up too much.
Yeah.
I go, well, no, just do it and let's watch it. And they try to do it and it doesn't even come close to being there.
Exactly.
So when you got these forces around you going multiple different directions and you move, what you have to feel like you're doing to offset those forces to get that camera to see what you want it to see doesn't correlate to what it looks like.
Exactly.
So the feels don't correlate. That's why when somebody says, well, practice this position, I go, okay. Or do you believe in this position? I go, yeah. But then I'll say, how do you get there? Well, you practice that position. No, you don't.
Right.
Because that position is static with no motion or forces involved. What do you have to feel, and how do you use these forces so that that position shows up automatically?
Yeah.
That's where it gets confusing. That's what confused me as a player. I get it now because I understand the forces, how the body moves, what the club's trying to do, and who we are in this universe, and how you're trying to offset the momentum of that club. So what you just said is what most people have to feel. I had a really good teacher, a guy named Joe Nichols, who used to tell me this. And I had this problem. I would get up and I'd start down and the frickin' club would get under too much.
Yep.
And he says, Mike, you want to feel like this. On the backswing, you want to feel like the club's standing straight up.
Yep.
Then you go up to the top, and the first move down is you want to stand the club straight up.
Yep.
And then you level the club out into the ball. So you stand it up, level it out.
Yeah.
I'd go, Joe, I've never seen any. He says, just try it. So then I'd stand there, and I'd go, and I'd feel like I was doing this, and I'd feel like I was doing that, and I'd stand there and make a swing.
Yeah.
And we put it on the video, and the frickin' club was perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And I felt like I was doing this to it.
Yeah.
Well, you got force. See, that club, when you're at the top of your swing, when you get here and you go to start to change directions, that club goes from weighing 12, 14 ounces. By the time every 2 or 3 inches it moves, it gains about a pound of force. So when it gets here and it moves to there, it's weighing like 10 pounds of force, and it wants to go that way.
Yeah.
If you just let it go, how are you going to catch this up?
I think a really important thing that, because I've got that question about what's Mike talking about with the shaft thing,
Yeah.
200 million times. And I say, I'm willing to bet that Mike and I, if we were looking at anyone else look as a person, they would say, hey, good players look something like this. What you just said there explains that so perfectly. The motion you're doing beforehand and getting that correctly is going to have the shaft pitching in that direction automatically.
This is going to happen automatically.
So you don't want someone to feel more. It's already happening. It's, hey, those sensations are so it doesn't get too far back.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
David Duvall did a Golf Channel thing with Charlie Reimer. It was the best thing I've ever seen because Charlie's been a under big hooker. That's been his fault for a long time. And here's David Duvall. And they start talking. He says, well, give me my driver. Let me show you. He says, when I was in college, he says, one thing for sure, you can't play from under the shaft plane. And he says, in college, I used to get under and I'd flip it and I'd duck hook everything.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out what I could feel to keep the club from falling under the shaft plane. So Charlie says, well, so what do you feel? He says, well, here's what I feel. So he does this. He goes, so I take my drive, so I go up to the top and I get here, and he says, when I start down, here's what I feel like my swing's doing.
Yeah.
And Charlie's just going, what? He says, yeah, I feel like I go like this. He says, now keep the camera on, and he hit his driver.
Yeah.
And he goes, whoosh, and they put it on, it was right on. This is what he had to feel to get it where it ended up where it's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
So where it's supposed to be is misleading.
Yeah.
So if you stand here and practice, I want the club right there, right there. You're dead because there's no force.
Got it.
See, this has no speed, no force.
Yep.
And if you try to put it there with speed and force, it's going to be under. So when I make practice swings like this.
Yep.
Now, it's not going to be here,
yep.
but when I put it to speed, I have to feel like I'm doing that to keep it from getting this way.
Exactly.
So it's an offsetting feeling.
Absolutely.
Relative to speed versus no speed. So you got to be really careful when you slow swings down on video.
Yep.
And then when you try to copy the positions with no force.
Yep.
Because you can, well, I ruined a career doing it.
All right.
Because I could hit the positions perfect.
Yep.
But I would hit each individual position. It wasn't an overall flow. And so that's
perfect. Yeah.
Basically what you said there is right on. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for regular updates and tips. Thanks for watching.